get the show, let's get the show rolling. Welcome.
Mm,
Welcome everybody. So good to have you all here.
mm,
You too.
Here to share the space.
Amor.
Amor, brother, welcome. So this is just a little meeting in unknowing. So much of our day is taken up by knowing. And it can just be nice just to be around like-minded where not knowing is celebrated. Don't need to know anything to know your true nature. It's already. You already are what you seek. Paths are fine. Practices are fine. Nothing wrong with them. But they're not going to make a whit of difference to what you already are. So they can just be done for the joy of doing them. No other reason. Harvey, we talked about the Buddhist monks that would spend 8 weeks painstakingly putting each rice on a huge table, colored rice, and making the most beautiful mosaic you've ever seen. And then what happens on the last?
they destroy it
Yeah.
because even then they do not want to hold on to it.
And yet, right, Harvey, they give it their best because they even wear these little eyepiece goggles so they can really make sure that the detail is correct.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But it also, in its absolute beauty, the way they create it, but it's also impermanent. And so even that, you could say returns to nothingness, although it always is nothingness, of course.
Just the joy of doing it for no reason. It's such a freedom. You know, Walking out in the rain doesn't it doesn't need a reason. When the bird is getting wet by the rain, it's not thinking of it as any reason. It's just what is. There's just rain. Nisargadatta talks about finding it within, finding it within. He said, I can only know what I'm not. I can only be what I am. So I can only know what I'm not via words. Every word has an opposite. So it's never talking about you. So that's a freedom that words never touch you. And yet they do. Just listen to Michael Markham for 5 minutes. Like an artist, he uses words to paint pictures for us, but they're like bubble pictures. They just dissolve before us, right before us. Nothing, nothing is permanent. Yeah, I can only know what I'm not. I can only be what I am. So whatever you are, that's what you are. That's, you can't be anything else but what you already are. So then what is knowing? Imagination. It's beautiful. Look what it can do. Voila. It does wonderful things. It built the internet. It allowed us to Zoom together. That's the mind. That's technology. And it's constantly changing. I heard, I don't know if any of you guys know Donald Hoffman, the scientist. Donald Hoffman. Jenny loves him. But he said something funny. He was talking about how like science, he goes, oh yeah, science will always progress. We just have to wait for the old scientists to die, and then the new ones will pick up.
Yeah.
It's like finding it within, as Nisargadatta says. Here, I use the word already, and I realized they were the same thing. Because the moment you look within and see that what you've been searching for is this, that you already actually are, but it doesn't talk, it doesn't say a word, it's silent, it's already. Whatever you are, you're already it. So we can only talk about what we're not. That's the gift of duality. That's what the one, I mean, it's genius. Think about it. You're the only one. There's nothing else but you. And yet, like I said, voila, look at this. Multiplicity, seeming, apparently, multiplicity. And yet it's all the one appearing as multiplicity to itself because it is alone. So this is an open meeting. Everyone's free to participate. You have a comment, something you can share, anything, feel free to jump in.
You're muted, Michael.
Um, I always wanted to wait until they were just about through with the mandala and stumble around and spill my drink on it and say, "Oh, sorry."
They can't even see it completed. They don't
That's
even get to see it
hilarious.
Teach 'em real impermanence.
Oh my God, that is so funny.
Uh, oh, I was looking at Addie's profile before while this was going on, and it looked like a Rembrandt painting.
Isn't it amazing?
Truly, truly. And I was just thinking she can't see her own profile, which has wonderful meanings, I think.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah,
Well,
I don't see my face.
no.
Sometimes I say thank God, but this face is for you.
Yeah,
Like
you're
it,
beautiful.
hey, like it or not, love it or lump it. This is just it. But here, right, check it from your view. Do you
Mm,
see a face when you're looking out? Do you see
no,
your face?
no.
You don't.
Mm. It's wonderful to see Harvey.
It's wonderful to see you, Michael.
I love the relationship he has with his students. He's such a wonderful teacher.
Yeah, Harvey, just to let you know, I think you're kind of our breakout star because several people commented, said they really enjoyed your input.
Great. I appreciate that.
Uh, mm.
The- Tonight, I was going to share something before I got on here. I was doing a lecture at a college on artificial intelligence and on the neuroscience that's behind it. And, I just brought up, there were a lot of questions, and I was talking about sort of the conceptual overlay, something that, Michael, you bring up very often.
Mm.
And, but, there's one element that people have brought up, and I think I've mentioned this maybe even a while back about when we talk about the objectifying brain, but that there is a possibility of the ineffability of a knowingness that may be beyond language, beyond the naming, and that just want to put it out there because somebody actually brought it up, and I've actually heard it before many times and read about it. The possibility of a sort of a knowingness that doesn't have the naming of it or the objectification within the brain, and it's sort of, and somebody actually asked me that tonight. I was doing a community presentation, and but it reminded me of that question: is the brain just is it only objectifying, or is there the possibility of a knowingness that is beyond words? And just I put that out as just a sharing. And I don't know a definite answer, but I sometimes, when I hear that, and I've heard this so many times from people, that it makes me wonder, are we, is there something that we're not sort of getting and we're sort of landing on one perception of how the brain operates? Just a thought.
Every sentient organism has something that lets them survive and reproduce. Um, I this brain seems to see objectification as the lens that fabricates the illusion of self and the dream of shared dreams, the dream of a shared separate entity. I see nothing beyond that for the objectifying brain when it looks through the lens of self, the lens of personal identification. It's purely an objectified consensus conceptual overlay. But there must be something, well, how would we know that unless that's an objectification also?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um, There may be, but we can never know that because of this. We fall under the aegis of the objectified perspective. We are that. I think we are, as personas, we are the brain's objectified perspective, and that's our only realm. And it's beautiful. I mean, there's the only place where love and beauty exist. And the universe, I think. There's love has to exist in an imaginary separation, me and you, me and other. No other animal experiences love. They have the same chemical reactions in their brain, I'm sure, but they don't know they're here. They don't know that they're feeling love. We have a name for it. And imaginarily separated from it. And that has a blessing and a curse. The curse is trying to find out who and what we are, what the hell is going on. For some of us, not everyone feels that way. My wife doesn't. She never has. She's perfectly content to just kind of drift along and share a dream, for lack of a better word. And I was never that way. I remember 10 years old sitting on the sagebrush hills wondering what the hell's going on. I think most of us have felt that. Who are we? What's happening?
So I just wanted to say, Michael, I just did a post on this um, because I too used to lay in bed as a little boy, look out the window up at the stars at night and say, what am I? What's my true nature? I'm going to find it. And that was sort of all I cared about, more or less. And I now realize it was innocently, but it was the wrong question because what am I implies I'm a thing.
And I think that at least the way I sort of think about this, is that there is a sense of humility or humbleness to be able to say, well, maybe I think I know all of this, but then maybe I don't. That maybe there's a degree of unknowingness, and that the possibility that when we've reached a conclusion, and it may be 99.9%, maybe even correct, but the possibility that it may not be the totality of an answer, that there's sort of the willing to say, I don't know. I may think I have an answer, but there may be other than that, or something, an unknowingness where I can say, I don't know for sure.
Harpy, doesn't that imply an entity that doesn't know?
No, no, it doesn't. It's interesting because from a logical, sort of a logical way, we could certainly say that, that seems to be the logical implication. But I think there can be an unknowingness with no knower. Just, it's like a knowing without a knower, no subject, not even an object, just a pure, just an unknowingness, and just leave it and then full stop right there. So logically, yes, it doesn't make sense to the mind. I grant that in our normal, in a conventional way of thinking, but to just maybe just to think that could it just be a sort of a call to knowingness, whatever the word, doesn't really matter, without any subject. It's just the isness of it. I don't know. It's hard to say it because I don't even want to put it in words.
Mm. That's going back to what you had originally spoken of.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh my. I think out here on the edge it gets slippery.
That's a good point, Michael. I like that, because that slipperiness,
Yeah.
that's the thing that even the concepts, even to say, whether we say conceptual overlay, and I love that phrase, but even to say that, to leave that slipperiness in there,
Mm.
because once we say, oh, that's what it is, then we're done.
Mm.
And and you see, we've landed somewhere with a sort of a level of confidence, and yet that slipperiness leaves the possibility of maybe slipping. Who knows where it takes us?
Oh my. Yeah, I think that that's just another objectification of imagining something beyond objectification. I see that as our prison, as we are defined by and confined to the brain's objectified perspective. I think it's broad and wonderful, and cars and rocket ships were developed out of that through community effort. But it all is objectified. Even imagination of our imagination of something beyond objectification is an objectification.
Maybe,
Oh,
maybe, maybe
yeah.
99.9%. But I would leave a little. I'd leave a little 3-in-1 oil in there to slip, to let it slip a little.
That's because you're a philosophy professor. Oh, 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 Harvey, I love your mind.
And I love yours because I use a lot of things that you've written, and I actually use it in classes to get discussion. And not everyone concurs; some people sort of do. But what a lot of people will point out to me that they'll say, "Well, we've got it tightly conceptualized, but is that just becoming another trap?" And I have no real answer to that, but it's just a question that I sit with.
Yeah.
Yeah, object if you objectification, that may be it. Not wrong, not bad, not that it's the brain, not that there's something else that's beyond that or bigger than that. Maybe objectification, conceptualization by the brain is it. That's it. That's what everything's pointing to. Everything is pointing to that. Nothing is pointing to nothing other than what is happening. Just pointing to that. Nothing better than anything else. So I'm sitting over here objectifying. Perfect. That's it. Here, yeah. And any judgment I have upon that, that's it. Or any judgment you have on that, that's it. Or anything, that's it.
Hey, Michael.
Yeah.
I think that Don found it.
He's right in the middle on my screen, where he should be. He gets a gold star.
Thank
Right
you.
on the forehead. Right
Passing grade.
Yeah, gold star.
And I just say, as long as we don't land on the word, it's objective. Everything you could say, everything is objectified, but not even that.
I used to.
And so if we make the word, as long as the word isn't special, it's just another whatever we'd say, unfolding expression, whatever. But if it becomes special, then that specialness, I think, sort of allows it you sort of land there. And I think that's, it's easy to fall into a trap. So yeah, everything is it, but not even that.
But the specialness, I love that. If it's special and you fall into the trap, I get what you're saying. That's it.
Well, yeah, that's it too.
I mean, that's totally it. So fall into a trap. Perfect. That's it. There's nothing greater than being in the trap if you're in the trap.
And to be not in the trap is the same as being in the trap.
Yeah, right. So where are you? Right.
Well, wait a second. Okay, wait. Don, you just asked that's the question of the night. Right? Where are you in all this?
There is no it. There is no it. I think we're left with literally nothing that we can hold on to. Literally, when I talked at my friend's philosophy class at a college south of here, I would offer the students $1,000 if they could think of anything that didn't have a name. They would look around the room, and I said, "Oh, you can look outside the room." And they couldn't think of anything that didn't have a name. And I would say sometimes that that should tell you all you need to know. Um, Thinking exists only in naming, and all names are imaginary. Things exist only in the naming of them. There are no separate things. There's no such thing as a state or a mountain. That's our world. That's the only world as personas we can ever experience. And we don't exist, of course, as anything other than a mental fabrication in this beautiful, objectifying human brain, which is the most beautiful, I believe. There's no reason to believe there's anything better than us in the entire manifested universe. A naked ape that evolved over eons through, oh my God, the Great Plains of Africa and eons before that, and through Middle-aged Europe. We are the top of the gene pool. My God, we are the survivor genes. I think we're the best life has ever had to offer, but that has a curse. And the curse is those of us who are struggling with this, trying to figure out what's really happening. And of course, there's no answer to that, except another objectification.
See, I would say, Michael, that we're just as dirty as a cockroach. I don't, I
Yeah.
mean, if we're the best that life has to offer, then life is a pretty dull place.
Oh, yes. The dinosaurs had no love. There was no love until we came along.
What is love?
Oh, it's a chemical reaction in the brain. It's the comfort zone. It's the chemical comfort zone, given a name. Addie, what do you think?
Um, I still haven't figured it out.
You love. No one has. Oh,
Except Don's found it.
except on.
Congratulations, John.
It's the red hat. It's gonna get me one of those. Oh,
I
Addie,
sent
no.
I sent Leela today a picture of a hamster on a hamster wheel,
Mm.
except the hamster wasn't on the hamster wheel. It was just laying prone, stretched out on the bottom. And wrote it to Leela and said, "This is what giving up looks like."
Yeah.
Oh, oh.
Patty, I liked your answer because maybe there's no need to figure it out. Because once you figure it out, you probably,
It's just not
well,
satisfied. You're like,
yeah.
like whatever it is that you can't be figured out. That's for sure.
No.
What would that even be?
I delight in knowing no one ever has or ever will be. If you talk to a group of philosophy professors who have spent their lives of diligent study, it's not easy to get a doctorate or a master's in anything, let alone philosophy. My best friend is a retired philosophy professor, and we used to have long discussions. And he only lives a couple blocks away, and we never see each other. There's nothing to talk about anymore. I love him, and he's dying, and I will miss him, I think. I know that we are ultimately alone. That aloneness is what we all share. I think this heart can open up to other human beings who are also ultimately alone.
What
Yes.
does it mean to be alone, though?
Oh, locked in a cage of your own memories. You are nothing but a beautiful brain's objectified memories, a sense of self, a personal idea of self, of unique memories gleaned over a lifetime. Unique to you. No one's ever been like Harvey or ever will be again. You are an amalgam of memories, swirling around an empty center, alone in those memories.
Some call that and this you can always use the phrase, it's called the egocentric predicament, that
Mm.
we're stuck in a bubble. And there are many have asserted that you're stuck in your thoughts, your memories, you see the world from your history and so on. And yet, others have argued that when looking at art or the experience of music, that there may be the possibility of we'll call it a transcendence of that bubble, that the bubble is not absolute. Um, and I won't go into name. There's a whole bunch of people that say through art, music, and art defined in a broad way, that sometimes in that sense, you look at Johann Sebastian Bach or others or Beethoven, that there has been a transcendence of the egocentric predicament, of that aloneness. So the aloneness, yes, is there, and yet there is, some would assert there is that possibility that it's not a solid bubble. And
Mm.
that's why that people, Michelangelo, all of them have sort of played with that realization of that aloneness or that bubble, and yet have tried and have maybe said that they have been able to, I don't, this is my words, but transcend, or that the bubble is not absolute.
Mm.
Just a thought.
I think we exist only in each other's light. In that way, we have a commonality, a common what? Common ancestry or a commonality in a shared language that happens in a shared linguistic format. That a tribal feeling. Fine musicians talk about being in the pocket when everything is going a certain way. And you can see it in certain bands. They'll look across and smile at each other. They feel, they know they've got it. And it feels like transcendence. I think it's a temporary loss of personification, of the identification with an individual. And a band of soldiers will feel that. They will die for each other. A band of 7 to 10 men and women will feel this bond like they're one person. And if they're in battle and their life is in jeopardy, they will die for each other. Romans found this out. Most successful warring peoples have found this out. They work together, they die together. It's primate, it's primal. I love that expansiveness of the human, to think that we can talk about this, we can objectify it and share it, but that's as close as we can get to it. You can't get into the pocket by thinking about it. A Dixieland band playing together, all playing different tunes. Somehow they do this thing where they come together, and it's just incredible. But they don't know how they do it. They can't. They can't redo it. I mean, they maybe they can. I don't know, but um, marching bands will do.
Jazz.
Yeah,
Jazz.
Mhm.
Jazz. You
yeah.
know, jazz. It's beautiful. Yeah.
Mm.
Uh,
So doesn't that, in a way, Um, it's like being in the zone, another word for the same thing, the zone or the flow or whatever the word is, that the possibility that the separation, the that it feels like separation, we could talk about that, but that in those that possibly that the separation that we so-called experience is kind of like a mirage of a lot of things, and we call it separation. But then maybe in the examples you actually gave, Michael, which are very good examples, that maybe all of a sudden there's a seeing that the separation was not really there as an independent, that it's empty, that it's really empty. It's like a mirage, like a flip book. You know, those flip books, you see a frog, a toad turn into a frog. So you have all those things, you go, oh, yeah, so maybe all the things are memories and all that produces a sense of separation. I'm not saying it wouldn't, but that there are those moments that you actually pointed out right there, where in which what I would say that aloneness is not really, it's not really aloneness, because the aloneness almost implies a separate individual in a sense, maybe. So I think you gave some very good examples, but that may show that the natural, whatever we call the true essence or natural state, may not be this isolated, separate aloneness or the just an objectification of the brain, but that there is the possibility that maybe we're seeing it in the wrong way. That the what you just talked about is our true nature. I'm just raising that possibility. That is what everyone is sort of seeking, is because they sort of get those moments, like in a band or in music, or in the sense of beauty of all of a sudden it's like, huh, and the eye, the sense of the eye, suddenly is not there.
Yes.
And that may be our natural, the sort of the natural, whatever we want to call it, rather than the sort of the mirage of separation. Just, yeah, I think that was good. I liked your examples.
I think it's beautiful. I
Yeah.
think what if it's all natural? Even the imaginary separation.
Yes. Yes. So, yeah. So even that. So even all of it is just this. All of it, including the imaginary separation, including the narratives about how it comes about. You know, UG Krishnamurti used to say, if we keep talking about it, it's all blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. I used to play drums for about 25 years. When I was 14, first band, till I was about 30 some or so. And what you're talking about is there's just no thought going on when there's just one thing happening. I remember turning to the bass player next to me, and we were doing a solo and stuff, and we were just, there was just watching what was happening, but there was no thought about what was happening. And we were just going into it so much that I saw steam coming up, kind of. It was going so fast and stuff. He was really playing the bass, and I was playing the drums to a thing. But many times that's why people do these extraordinary sporting events and mountain climbing and all that, because they have to be there, and it's almost like at some point it's a life or death situation. And so it's almost like the watcher just takes over and it's just noticing. You know how they've talked about where you about to die, and you wake up, you're watching yourself from the corner of the hospital bed or something. There's just, that's what's happening. It's almost like I'm watching a life being expressed, and it's without a thought. And it's so, that's what's cool about life. I mean, it's just,
Well,
it's just phenomenal. Before I got on here, I was complacent, meaning I was isolated my thoughts and stuff. for the last week or so, all the last week, I didn't have to do anything. You know, when you don't have to do anything, and here it is, this is all there is, and you don't have to do anything. So it's my mind is going, "Oh, gee." So I go change some light bulbs on.
Yeah, yeah.
You do things so that you can give the dog a bone or something.
Oh,
You just
Manny, did you, as a musician, did you ever hear of Victor Wooten? He,
no.
he wrote he was a bass guitarist and taught. He wrote a book called The Music Lesson, and often would challenge musicians. He would use music. He talked about it as a kind of a way that to feel sort of the spirituality through music. And very often he would talk to guitarists and say, "Hey, let's go to the pentatonic scale." Push them out of the five scale. He would push
The
them.
normal thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
the
normal
normal.
thing to push
Yeah,
them beyond their limits, because then he'd say to
yeah,
listen to it, he'd say logically you could listen to flats and sharps and it sounds discordant, but all together, if you really played it together, then it breaks you out of the discordant. It's neither discordant
yeah.
or harmonious. It's both and it's neither.
Take
oh my.
Five did that for a
Yeah,
while. Take
yeah,
Five, where you
Oh,
had the five beats instead of the other,
yeah,
and
yeah.
then it expanded to all kinds of things.
The chromatic scale was the pentatonic to
Yeah,
chromatic. I just remembered. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, right, right. No, but what I noticed too was when I moved up where I'm living, I live up in Cedars City, right above the face of the mountain, 8,000 feet. The view is fantastic. It's incredible. You can see 100 miles, Nevada. Anyway, what I'm saying is this, you get complacent. The mind gets, it, it forgets to notice the beauty that's around us that
mm,
we first I was in real estate heavily too, and I used to tell people that, can you believe the view here? Look at the clouds and the sunsets and all this other stuff, and the deer and the turkey, all the critters and the naturalness of life, all the trees.
mm.
And then you're on your computer all day or your cell phone, and and that becomes life. And that's what I'm talking about, the complacency of it. It gets so
Oh,
unlife. It's there's just no freshness to that when the mind takes over, and then I'm starting to believe in the specialty of my mind, trying to figure out that this is it already. It it doesn't want to go there. It just doesn't want. It keeps on backing off. It keeps on, and then okay, here it is. This is it. This is the freshness that's available to me at any moment, any moment. And instead, I'm obsessed with what somebody said at the counter store or something. It's insane, but that's also it. See, that's the expression. That's what I get here. That everything is it. Everything, no exceptions.
can that, even that, be let go of? Can that, not that that's an exercise or a personal intent,
Yeah,
but even that is a foothold. Even that's a place to rest for a moment. Um, what about if we had no footholds? The young men, someone mentioned climbing El Capitan with no ropes. Um, that type of person has to do that type of thing. They only feel alive when they do that, and they normally don't live very long. Um, my son grew up with a skier who became one of the top helicopter skiers, and these guys just live on the edge all the time. He had to do that because that's the only place he felt alive, and he died, as most of them do. But what a life! What a unique and wonderful life. Um, I love that loss of personal identity for a moment. We can't live there. Once you got up to the top of El Capitan, there are lots of other sheer mountains in the world he has to conquer. I grew up on a ranch in Wyoming. There's not too much to do on a ranch when you're 18 miles from town. And we used to ride our horses. There was a couple of them that you'd tie the reins to the saddle horn and give them a kick in the ribs, and they'd run home really fast. And you try to stand up in the saddle. And sometimes you could stand up and put your arms up and watch the clouds go by. And in that moment, you'd feel this incredible exhilaration when you knew at any moment you could crash and fall into the trees or bushes. But those few moments at the sound of doing this, and then your friend would sometimes do that, and those moments, but we can't live there, nor would we want to. We're not equipped to do that. But for those of us that have experienced that, the drummer, the dancer, the professor who looks out and see those young eyes glowing, oh, it's so precious to be human. It's so rare, and it doesn't last that long. My wife and I have been married 60 years. We can't believe it. Our hair is white now. If you live long enough, your hair will be white. If you're lucky.
Tell me about it.
You have beautiful hair. You're a beautiful man.
Yeah.
By the way, I can recommend a good video. So Donald Hoffman and Rupert Spira got together, and that was quite the mind-blowing chat. So that's on YouTube. Jenny and I were kind of geeking out over it because so brilliant to hear the two of them,
Mm.
just brilliant minds. And they work real well together. And Rupert was, Donald talks about this as a VR, virtual reality, that a cheap one, right? It's a cheap one. And in a way, Rupert explained that because Rupert was saying, so he was saying, his perspective, so says there's just consciousness. It's all consciousness, your consciousness. That's all there is, conscious of experience. And he said, did you ever notice that your consciousness is limited to your five senses? Right? You can hear things because that's one of your faculties. You can say things because you have the ability to speak. So we have five senses. That's not a whole lot. You can imagine, for instance, a polar bear can smell food 20 miles away. A polar bear can
So
smell food.
cool.
So that to me was quite revelatory because there can be a getting lost in the mind thinking you're getting closer to something, but no, it's a cheap headset. It's a dumbing down of what you actually are. So in a way, by getting lost in the mind, you're just to say you're going the wrong direction because what you are is infinite. So this is a dumbing down. It's a very limited of, it's like taking the sun and putting, making it into a battery so you can use it. Can't use the sun, but you could use a battery. So it's the same thing. This dumbs it down. It simplifies it. It works by inference. So if you say somebody's name, all of a sudden you get a feel for that person. How does that happen? Or if I say, what's your favorite ice cream? How does that come to you right now? Your favorite ice cream. It's magic. It's all magic.
Michael,
And
don't all, oh,
go
excuse me.
ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Manny.
Don't all those experiences that come and go, all of the things, even the glimpses that we chase and we're trying to get more of, they're not, they just come and go, just like the feelings that we have and stuff. But there's something that's noticing or
Yes,
something that's beyond that prior to those things.
that's it.
That's
That's what I'm
that,
saying. Yeah.
yeah,
Because the mind is what's noticed. So all
yeah,
my attention when I'm lost in mind and thoughts is concepts. Just
yeah,
fall tumbling into one, and it can be beautiful.
yeah,
Nothing wrong with it.
yeah,
But what you already are isn't a concept. It
right,
doesn't have an opposite. So
right,
all words have opposites. So no word is ever going to nail it. No
yeah.
word will ever, you'll never understand what you are, ever.
All I see is words can't quite touch what I feel. But all I see is a bunch of hairy, smelly things that resemble apes having a fucking round table, talking like we know what we are, trying what we are. It's sort of like that's why I call it a shit show. It's just so fucking silly, all of it.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It really is like a circus. Imagine like going to a circus and taking it seriously. Right.
And yet it's the most beautiful thing in the universe to be human, to share these things with another being, the mystery and joy and awe of simply being. It's incredible that a primate could come up with a tongue and a larynx and lips that could develop a complex language to share their imaginary worlds with each other. How rare is that? When we're gone, all species have a life, have a built-in obsolescence. When we're gone, we won't be back. Evolution took hundreds of millions of years of happenstance to reach where we are now. No animal ever repeats itself in evolution. You won't see 2-foot dragonflies again. They won't evolve again. There's no chance of that ever happening. The Carboniferous had a lot of oxygen, and insects got quite large. Dragonflies were 2 feet wingspan. They won't come back. Never again. We won't be back. Probably we're the only place in the universe where love and beauty exist. No other animal sees beauty. You don't see coyotes staring at a rainbow. I've seen people stop their cars on the highway to look at a rainbow, a double rainbow.
Yeah, I
Uh,
don't know. I don't know about this, Michael. I saw a beautiful video of an orangutan lovingly feeding a baby tiger its bottle. It had a mothering instinct and it would mix with other species. So
Mhm.
it was,
Truly,
showing empathy and love very clearly, nurturing.
Have you
that's
seen Coco the gorilla?
Yeah.
She she does sign language and she like communicates love to like every person and thing that she holds. But
I think that's anthropomorphism, that we are putting our imagination on another animal. I think other animals love their young. There's a biological prerogative to foster not only our young, but anything that simulates those in their absence. Um, for us to say that an animal is feeling love, I tell people that dogs don't love them, and sometimes people want to fight me. Dogs don't love you. They may feel the same chemicals. They may have the same chemicals in their brain. I'm sure they do, endorphins and dopamine and serotonin. But they don't know they feel love. They don't even know they're here.
How do you know that? How do you know that
Well,
dogs
it
love you?
takes a complex language and imaginary separation to know you're here. It
Huh?
takes a sense of self, although it be imaginary.
That's your definition of love.
A love is a
You know, you
word.
don't know if a dog loves or not. I mean,
Oh,
we've started this. We don't know anything anyway, so we're just talking. But you don't know if the dog loves. We we're we don't know if the dog loves us or not.
it requires imaginary separation for me to love you as a separate person. Dogs don't have that.
Yeah, but you know, Michael, I gotta say, yeah, it's it's a different. A dog shows love in its own way. It's
Yeah.
not going to do it like a person,
Yeah.
of course not. But it will be affectionate. It will come put its head on your lap. That's its way of communicating love. And I just want to say before we close out that this really is about unknowing. I can't emphasize that enough. There's nothing here that can truly be known. You can pretend it's useful. Knowledge is useful. Knowing 2 plus 2 is 4 is very useful.
Mm. Mm.
Very beautiful class tonight. Very beautiful. It's
Wonderful.
like the philosophy of non-duality. It was really an interesting thing tonight, and that we get to come here and talk openly with
Mm.
these different points of view and share them and grow is pretty phenomenal. Yeah, so thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
You, Michael, for having
Thanks,
this.
thanks,
thanks,
guys.
Michael.
Thanks, Don,
That
Mandy,
unknowing, yeah, that
Harvey.
unknowing is there.
Yeah, that really is the unknowing is the piece.
Yeah,
Addie,
remember.
Amor, Anon, everyone, have a great evening, everybody. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.